Hey guys, it's me, Dax, from What's Under the Bed. This is a little special. We are first thing doing 2 interviews, and also we've got multiple people. We've got the cast and director of the new movie that's coming out on October 14th, The Accursed, which stars Sarah Gray, Alexis Knapp, Sarah Dumont, and the great Meg Foster, and the always amazing MENA SUVARI. Then I have a one-on-one interview with Kevin Lewis right after, so stick around for that one. My guests today are the director and cast of the new horror movie The Accursed. Sarah Gray played a young Norma in Bates Motel and made an appearance in the series iZombie, but many know her from her lead role as Alyssa Drake in the Netflix series The Order. She can also be seen playing Stargirl in DC's Legends of Tomorrow or as Amanda in Power Rangers. Horror fans will recognize MENA SUVARI from movies like Day of the Dead, Carrie 2 The Rage, South of Hell, What Lies Below, and her role as the Black Dahlia in the hit television series American Horror Story. For the rest of the world, she is instantly remembered for her iconic role of Angela Hayes in the Oscar-winning Best Picture American Beauty, or as Heather in the hilarious and wildly successful American Pie franchise. After a few smaller roles, Alexis Knapp broke out in the sleeper hit Project X. She then became known for her standout performance as Stacy in the Pitch Perfect movies. Horror fans can see her in Phobias, available on Hulu, or the upcoming movie The Knocking with Doug Jones. Last but not least, there's Kevin Lewis. He's the director of movies like The Drop, Dark Heart, and The Third Nail. In 2021, he released the instant cult classic and one of my favorite movies, Willy's Wonderland, starring Nicolas Cage. Sarah, MENA, Alexis, and Kevin, it's a pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. What a nice intro.
The Accursed will be available in theaters and on demand October 14th. I had a chance to see this movie last week and I absolutely loved it. Viewers are catapulted into this world with its amazing opening sequence. Meg Foster is awesome. There's there's a slow burn, increasing dread, lots of scares, and strange characters. You never know who's good or bad. So many twists and turns until all hell breaks loose. And the ending is one for the books. That's my spoiler-free review. Kevin, what can you tell us about this movie?
I mean, you pretty much said it, right? It's just, for me, you know, Willy's was a love letter to the 80s, and this is a love letter to the 70s horror, vintage horror. And movies like The Omen and The Changeling, Rosemary's Baby, you know, Psychology. The scariest thing, Dax, I feel is like what lurks in that human mind, right? And that's what this movie's about, you know. And it's about the sins of the mothers revisited on the daughters, generational trauma, as the ladies like to say. And I agree. The Sting song, The History Will Teach Us Nothing, really played in my head while I was making this movie, because it is kind of a tragic to see the little girl Sadie could wind up like Mary Lynn, you know, and the others, you know, winding up like their mothers if they don't deal, especially with Ellie, deal with the guilt and the regret that she has to go through. And so I wanted to make a little deeper movie than Willy's, a little more getting in the weeds and more about characters and more about the drama and the trauma that comes along with it, and a different side of myself. You know, I wanted to make something that was kind of unsettling, and a movie that at the end of the day, hopefully people will be thinking about long after, you know, they finish it. I feel like today we're in so many films and shows, I feel like it's empty calories. There's just so much content going out. It's really hard to make something that make people kind of pause And because I think too, our lifestyles just go, 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 go. And I wanted to make a movie that kind of makes you settle in for the ride, you know, slow burn. I love slow burns. And I just feel like this movie really kind of is a roller coaster of the emotional spirit with what happens with this cast. And they
Is Kevin lagging for you guys?
Yeah.
I was just yakking and yakking. You guys said no more.
I
We
know.
get that cane.
Um,
Anyways, go ahead.
What's Under the Bed is an interview show where I speak with horror actors and filmmakers about their biographies and careers in the genre. I also like to explore their backgrounds in relation to horror movies and the things that shaped what scares them. I want to direct these next few questions to the cast. Before the influence of any film, what was the thing that scared you the most? Was there a ghost in the attic or a monster under the bed?
I started. I don't.
Mina, would you like to start?
Okay, I'll start. I guess I would say ghosts. Like when I was really little. It's always been about like the paranormal for me. That's the thing I think that scared me the most when I was youngest.
Sarah, do you want to go next?
For me as well, I think the first house that I lived in was haunted. Doors would shut on their own, and I think one time it was just me and my sisters at home, and a stereo started playing, and my oldest sister went down and shut it off, and then came up to get me and started playing again. And so I think she just scooped me up with like one shoe on. I think we like left out the window, not even like the door. We just wanted to get out of there. So yeah, supernatural definitely freaked me out. It was an eerie feeling in that first house. I'm glad we left.
Same here. A house I half grew up in, it was my stepdad's house, haunted. And their basement, literally like going into hell. And one time my stepsisters locked me in it, wouldn't let me out. And I was terrified out of my mind when I was like 9, 10, 11, something like that. It was fucking evil. Evil stepsisters. But ultimately, that was like real life. When it comes to movies, I was most scared by anything that was gonna have a knife. If somebody comes near a knife, I can't watch it anymore. I can't deal with any cutting, like slicing, seeing it. And the funny thing is, I love wielding knives myself. I enjoy them, but like if I don't have the control, it's like terrifying.
Many children are first introduced to horror and witches through fairy tales like Hansel and Gretel or Snow White. Was there a children's story that scared you the most as a child? Sarah, would you like to go first?
Sure. I'm trying to think. In children's movies, I think The Witch and Wizard of Oz freaked me out when I was young. I think I used to like run behind the couch whenever The Witch came out.
Alexis?
I'm trying to remember. I wasn't even allowed to watch Jurassic Park when I was little. That's like how Catholic my mom is. So yeah, not even a scary movie.
Geez. I'm trying to think. Oh no. Can you tell me the question again? Let me see what comes to the top of my head. I guess with the fairy tales, I mean, it wasn't anything that scared me so young, because I thought that, I mean, I'm trying to like maybe Hansel and Gretel and things like this. But maybe for me, more my time, I think of like Bloody Mary. Did you guys ever?
Yeah, no,
yeah. That was sort of not. So it wasn't more of like a fairy tale thing. It was more like when I was in middle school. It was like light as a feather, stiff as a board, and it would be like Bloody Mary, and was like terrified that she was actually going to appear in the mirror.
I agree with you. Bloody Mary, I still won't do it. No way. No freaking way.
Those days were different though, because you could call people and do prank calls and nobody had call waiting, and like you could really scare people.
Yeah, that's true.
Bloody Mary, yeah.
Busy dial.
The Accursed is a terrifying movie that deals with witchcraft, demons, and possession. MENA, you were born in Newport, Rhode Island. You lived in St. John Virgin Islands for a year, then grew up in Charleston, South Carolina until moving to Los Angeles when you were 14. The Sea Islands, island slave culture of South Carolina's past left a lasting impression on the folk stories of the area. Boo hags were supernatural beings related to witches who would steal a person's breath through an act called writing. They were often described as blood red and would walk around in the skin of their victims. Alexis, you were born in Avonmore, Pennsylvania, but grew up in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. There was a witch trial in Princess Anne County, not far from the border in 1706, where Grace Sherwood was accused by a carpenter named John White of bewitching his livestock and writing his wife. She was bound and tried in water by ducking, which was a medieval method of discovering witches. Sarah, you were born in Nanaimo, British Columbia in Canada. Nanaimo has the beautiful Witchcraft Lake, where there's a legend of the Ahawzat witch from the 1700s. Did you ever hear about these stories, or were there any ghost stories, urban legends, or myths like these and like Bloody Mary that you remember from when you were growing up?
No, I can't believe. I mean, hearing this was a lot of fun because I Witchcraft Lake. That's so cool. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I did hear any of these stories.
I heard about some of the witchy stuff. But the big thing where I'm from, the Outer Banks of North Carolina, I'm from Kill Devil Hills, and it's literally called Kill Devil Hills. And the reason for that would be because when the colonists, the British, are coming over on the boats, bringing their liquor and their weapons and everything, the Native Americans, the true Americans on the land, said that the white man had a drink so strong that it could kill the devil. And they're like, "Ha, that's hilarious. We call this Kill Devil Hills. Screw what you called it." That's all I kind of got for that kind. That's scary to me, though. It's like really scary.
Goodness.
It's war.
MENA, do you have anything to say?
I mean, when I lived in Charleston, I was only there for a few years. I was like 11 to almost 14, and I don't remember ever hearing boo hag when I was there. Ironically enough, I mean, I wasn't hanging out in those circles. I don't know. I wasn't like exposed to that kind of stuff at the time. I hadn't heard that legend. Yeah, I know of it now, but I wasn't at the time.
Kevin, this movie had me hooked from its amazing opening scenes. Meg Foster is a legend and a real force in this movie. Would you tell me how she became involved in the film?
Yeah, I mean, she was the top choice. I've always loved Meg, and she just sparked to the script, and we had a Zoom meeting, and we talked for like 3 hours. It was like a FaceTime meeting on the iPhone. We were talking like for 3 hours just about it, and we just got along so well, and she was just fantastic. She's a legend, but she's a beautiful person inside and out, and she's just a wonderful human being, and just a legend, a fantastic actress. I mean, when she was in the cabin, the air is thick, right? Like her presence, she's in bed, but you just feel that presence when you go in. And I was just like, man, we could capture that on film. We've got something really special. So she's just great.
What was your process for casting this film? What do you look for in an audition? And as a director, what do you wish an actor knew about your side of the audition process?
So the great thing about, this movie is, we got the script to this wonderful talent, and there was no auditions. I knew in my heart of hearts, each one of them, could do this, do these roles. And auditioning is great, you know, and I actually like to hear what they like to say about auditioning, because they're the ones that have done it their whole lives and as an actor. But to me, it's like, yeah, that's auditioning. You're reading lines. It's fine. I like to get to know the person, sit down and just have a chat and talk to them and feel things out and find things. Because at the end of the day, to me, acting is you're bringing all your tools of your life to this character, to this part. So for me, it's all about the conversation. And if they get the material, and if they get you and you get them and all that stuff. And we never had one creative disagreement, any of us. We all saw the movie the same way, which was a beautiful thing. So I'm curious to hear their idea about auditioning, you know, what they have to say, you know.
I think,
Auditioning is the bane of my existence.
I was gonna say it sucks.
yeah,
So bad.
Yeah.
I hate auditioning. It's the worst. I
So
think what's
fake.
tough too is sometimes people will be like, "Hey, yeah, here, do this," you know, and you're like, "Okay, great." But for someone like me, like I always want to know a bit more, so I'm always sort of left like, I don't know. Like, here you go. Is this like, especially in this day and age, you know, where you can't see anyone anymore. You're just sort of doing.
And for me,
You're
and for
like,
me,
"Hey,
an
yeah."
audition is, and for me, an audition is a director's reel, right? Let me see your reel. It's like, what, you want to see just some pretty pictures cut together with some music. You don't really get anything. You need to watch something all the way through, but no one has attention span to do that. Anyways, I'm going on a riff, but
Yeah.
it's true.
The best audition I ever had was, and I found out it was the writer later, sat in like a few feet from me in a chair with my resume like this the entire time. And
Wow.
it can be what's the right word? You know, intimidating.
Dehumanizing.
yeah. No, it's such a different experience auditioning to actually filmmaking. And
Yeah.
I think the only time that maybe I'd appreciate that process is if a character feels really out of reach for, like, if it feels drastically different, and it would just be nice to have someone go, yeah, I see that for you, this is working. Like, but for the most part, yeah, I think I would prefer just meeting with the director, having a conversation, getting to know each other, figuring out, okay, yeah, is this like a team that seems to fit?
It depends too, you know, sometimes people don't want to do it too much, you know, sometimes a director might not want to run it too much because they want that freshness, or, you know, it all depends on, I think, the objective, you know, and the direction.
Absolutely.
Alexis, you shared the screen with a different screen partner. Sadie is a really tough character in the movie, and she's played by her real life 11-year-old daughter, Kai. How did she get involved with the movie, and what would your advice be for parents with children who want to pursue a career in acting or singing?
I would say make sure you're raising that child with integrity, empathy, kindness, groundedness, feeding them right. I mean, just holistic, because it's too easy for children to be absolutely destroyed by being an actor, when like child actors typically don't end up so healthy in the end. This is like the most common thing in the world. So I was not allowing her to do it forever. And this is the first real thing I allowed. My character, I got the offer, I'm reading the script, has a 9-year-old daughter. My daughter was 9, about to turn 10 at the time of reading it. And my manager said, would you like me to suggest to the director, Kai, to submit her? And at first I thought, definitely no way, no freaking way. But then I sat with it for a little while, and I started to see the light more. I didn't have my hard black or white perspectives projecting that old paradigm onto this new reality, and this new situation. And so I really considered it. And then I thought, actually, you know, it's a very empowering role for her, and for me. And, you know, all the horrible stuff that does happen that she can't see, she's not going to be there anyways for it. And so I said, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. And she needed to audition. So I taped her at my house in this room, and we submitted it. And she's just a great little actress naturally. So it was wonderful. She's very committed. She was over the moon that I was letting her do a movie. My suggestion to other parents, aside from like raising them really right and grounded, is my deal with Kai is that if you're a full-time actor, we are going to balance that with yoga, meditation, Pilates, like lots of exercise, martial arts, eating salads and smoothies and fruits, and like eating what you need to eat all the time. Like I'm going to be very militant about her mindfulness, because you have to balance that, because this is an industry where they fluff you up and give you all the compliments in the world, make you feel like you're bigger than God, and that corrupts people. It makes them too egotistical. So I won't allow that for my child. So I would just say that you have to balance their soul by guiding them in the right ways.
MENA, I read you have always been a fan of horror. What are some of the horror movies that scared you the most as a child, and what do you think is a good age for kids to begin watching horror?
Oh, geez.
No.
You know, I feel like many times it falls back on like to each his own, because I can't speak on every, you know, family dynamic. I hope it wouldn't be too young, you know. It's like content appropriate. I'm trying to think for me, because I have 3 older brothers, so I know I was exposed to a lot pretty young. I remember like I one of the first films that I saw was Dolls by Stuart Gordon, and it really messed me up because I was probably like 7 or 8, and my great aunt at the time had she had a home in West Virginia full of these dolls, full of these like ceramic dolls, and it was terrifying. It was a terrifying experience. So that kind of ruined my childhood, that movie.
Sarah, I read you were in a stage production of Grease when you were 13 years old. What character did you play, and are there any recordings that still exist?
Oh, unfortunately.
Please say yes, there are.
Yes, there is. I played Sandy. It was, I think, the first and last stage production I did. It was a lot of fun. It really was. But I think, you know, I think my style of acting caters more towards film acting. I like to be more subtle. I don't like to be, you know, big and hugely physical. I like to, you know, be more naturalistic, but that was so fun. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, my mom probably has a recording somewhere.
Alexis, you performed in musicals in high school as well. Do any of those films exist?
No. I was in high school for a very short period of time. I did The Crucible, and then in the second semester I did The Sound of Music, and I was the only one who was younger than the character I was supposed to play. I guess I was 15, and I was cast as Liesl. I am 16, going on 17. But before, I had to practice kissing Rolf, which would have been my first kiss, and I was fucking mortified. Sorry, Graham Mountain. Unfortunately, our beloved theater teacher passed away in her office, and we ended up deciding not to continue to put it on. Yeah.
Oh. All right.
Yeah. It was fucked up.
Wow.
She was really overweight, and she went on this ridiculous hardcore diet thing and shed too much weight too fast, and all the toxins, like I think she got a blood clot or something and just died in her chair. But she is so beloved. Actually, the next film I'm doing, my director, I told her the story, and she said that she would put a special thanks for Beth Craft in it. And I just started crying because she is so beloved, such a special human being, so fucking cool and funny and smart and real, and this horsey, raspy voice she smoked. And she's just the coolest lady ever. It was a real tragedy to lose her. Fuck the musical.
Well, to keep the tragedy going, we live in a world where teenagers are dealing with bullies, active shooter drills, and COVID lockdowns. Do you believe horror movies can provide catharsis for teenagers trying to cope with these fears? Who wants to field that one? Alexis, let's get you to do it.
I would say it depends on the person. Like, some people want to escape their own horror reality by diving into something else, and it's like same thing with people watching romantic comedies or something. They're like heartbroken or they're lovesick for somebody that it's not there for them. So they're going to go watch other people be happy and like live vicariously through them. And I think it's a lot of escapism and not wanting to feel your own stuff. So I think for some people, like for me, watching a bunch of nasty horror in the midst of COVID just makes me feel COVID harder. But I can see why a lot of people definitely don't have that experience. It just depends on the person.
There's a haunting song featured in the movie that has relevance to Ellie's dead mother. Alexis, your singing in Pitch Perfect has been celebrated with an MTV Movie Award. Sarah, you have a beautiful voice. You play guitar, you record and write songs. In fact, I read you originally wanted to be a singer before you began acting. I'd like to ask all of you this next question. Do you believe more songs have been written about love, lust, or heartbreak?
I was just writing a bunch of that out to a friend I'm going to make music with yesterday, literally, about all the fuel I have. I think ultimately it's heartbreak. I think usually people are propelled to create and express when they're feeling pain, but there are a million love songs out there. But I think what really is more of a driving force is the pain.
MENA, would you like to go next?
No, I totally agree, because it made me wonder, like if you're, I don't know, maybe you're just busy because you're in love, right? Like,
yeah,
you don't have as much time. so your heartbreak, you're more like with yourself. You have to express it.
So true.
I don't write songs, clearly.
Sarah?
Yeah, I started writing songs, and it was like my therapy, and that was really the only time that I felt inspired to write. And because it is just, for me, it really helped the emotion move through me, and it's emotions that I want to move through me and out. So it was very useful for me and very cathartic. So yeah, I would definitely say heartbreak is the biggest inspiration.
How about you, Kevin? What do you think?
Heartbreak, for sure. Yeah.
All right. And a follow-up. Why do you think there aren't more protest songs written these days, Kevin?
Protests songs?
Yeah.
I think everybody's protesting. I feel that with Twitter and everybody has a voice, and everybody's saying what they feel and everything. So I don't know. It's just I think we're in different times too. But yeah, I just feel like protests, you can protest right now on the internet 24/7. So why write a song about it? I'd rather hear songs about it, to be honest, but
maybe because they know that the record labels won't pick that up. It's not commercial anymore. It's not the agenda.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sarah Dumont is one of your co-stars. She does such a great job as Ellie's best friend and would-be protector. Sarah starred in a favorite movie of mine called Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, directed by a friend of the show, Christopher Landon. Sarah, you've been in iZombie, and MENA, you were in Day of the Dead. Let me ask all of you, do you prefer fast zombies or slow zombies?
I feel like in Day of the Dead they were more fast. Yeah, they're all creepy. I don't know. Fast zombies. Harder to get away from. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
you prefer I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd prefer slow zombies because you can outrun them. Yeah.
Fair. Sarah?
Yeah, I'll go with that slow one so I can get away.
Kevin?
Fast.
Fair.
You like
Different.
MENA, actors have to deal with gory and creepy scenarios in horror films. This movie is no exception. I heard you say in an interview you worked with or played with cadavers before. Would you elaborate on this?
I love when these things come back around from an interview somewhere. I think that was when I was in high school. we were taken to the College of Chiropractics and we were shown cadavers. There was a room full of cadavers. So we got to interact with them and learn about the body. My father was a psychiatrist. My mom was a nurse. I don't know. I've always had that kind of mind, you know, and for career day, I chose medical research. So that was, yeah, that was an interesting day at school. You know, we got to move some organs around and see how the body's built. So that's what that was in reference to.
Alexis, I've read you keep a garden with vegetables, bonsais, and carnivorous plants. You have nursed baby rats with eyedroppers full of soy milk so they could be fed to your snakes. You keep snakes, lizards for pets. What is the most exotic pet you've owned, and what's the one you've always wanted but never had?
You sure do your freaking research. There's like one post 100 years ago on my Instagram where I was feeding the baby rats with the eyedropper. What was the last part of the question? Shit.
What is the most exotic pet you've owned, and what's the one you've always wanted but never really had?
I want giant jungle cats. One day, lions and snow leopards, etc. This is my little mini snow leopard over here. She's finally sleeping. I don't know if you notice how wild she is. But I've owned over like 30-40 snakes because I'm obsessed with the genetics. And it was always like a breeding project. I really always wanted to have an eyelash viper. They're really beautiful, really cool looking snakes, but they're hot snakes, which means they're poisonous, and I'm not gonna fuck with that. But I guess the most exotic pet I ever had was definitely one of my more expensive morphed red-tailed boas. I had one that I named Khaleesi, and she was so exotic in her albinism, and I can't even remember the type she was, but she cost me thousands of dollars. But it was her genes were so unstable because of all the inbreeding to try and get this particular morph was so difficult that she actually died pretty early on. I was devastated.
MENA and Alexis, what was your first tattoo and your last tattoo?
I'll show you my first one.
All right. Say.
That's like a cute German way of saying fuck off. It says woof, because I thought that was a cuter way of telling people to fuck off, and I just show guys instead of having to talk to them. Yeah. And the last one is right here. And that's my daughter's name in Japanese.
That's awesome.
Which means ocean.
That's awesome. MENA, what about you?
I never thought that I'd get a tattoo. I was never like really into them. And then I remember I was working on a film in Spain, and I just knew one day, I was like, this is what I want, and this is where I want it. And I wanted a lion's head, like a lion face. And so that's on the back of my neck, was symbolic of strength and courage, and it felt like protection watching me from behind. And then recently I had a friend who lives in Canada. I got her a guest spot here in LA. She's incredible, especially with her portraiture. And I had her basically add a lot in and around the existing tattoos that I have. The ones that I had previously were done by Mr. Cartoon, who's very LA and street and kind of hard. And having my friend come was really beautiful just because of who she is. And it was like a softening for me. So I had artwork that she added around the script that I had that was floral. So I have flowers and the buds that are symbolic of my birth flower, my son's birth flower, and my husband. And then I have my son and my husband's name on there in the, throughout. So, and now I want to do some more. So,
I resonate with your lion tattoo, MENA. I love that. I love that you have them on the back of your neck.
No, and like the amount of people would be like, "Is that Simba?" And I'm like, "No, Or like I feel like it has so much more deeper meaning, you know, and tattoos can be very personal, you know, so not everybody's gonna get it, but
You should get the fuck off one to follow up with the Simba question.
that one I would need right here though. Just like
Let's switch.
right here.
No, don't do that to yourself. Too pretty.
Sarah, you've said you'd like to use your platform to promote positivity, self-love, and compassion. In fact, your spirit animal is Garth from Wayne's World. How has your philosophy helped you mourn the loss of never becoming a werewolf on the Order?
Wait, what was the last part?
How has your philosophy helped you mourn the loss of never becoming a werewolf on the Order?
Come on that question. You can that's amazing.
Okay, I have to explain. I grew up watching Wayne's World with my sister and my dad, and a couple years ago, I went as Garth, and my sister went as Wayne, and I think that's my favorite Halloween yet. It was so much fun. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Carry on.
Cool.
But yeah, I'm really sad I was a werewolf. They were the cool guys. My character was kind of uptight and always stressed out, and they were just chilling and kind of badass. So, but such is life.
Alexis, you are a huge gamer, science nut, and sci-fi junkie. You hosted a popular video series called Project Lore about World of Warcraft, and every gamer loves snack food. You visited the Hadron Collider in Geneva, and you own Star Trek bottle openers. My last question for you is a Sophie's choice. Two must die so that one may live. World of Warcraft, Star Trek, or Crunchy Flamin' Hot Cheetos?
I can't believe you. Like, you're a researcher.
It's like one of the best
I
interviews
love
I've ever done. You're amazing.
Yeah, you're amazing. I need to hire you. Dude, I'm too flabbergasted of how deep you go in the research. What is the question?
My last question for you is a Sophie's choice. So two must die so that one may live. World of Warcraft, Star Trek, or Crunchy Flamin' Hot Cheetos?
Oh, sheesh. Well, I think the answer is very obvious. Crunchy Hot Cheetos, get the fuck out of here. I've already eradicated that from my diet, but I did eat an outrageous amount of them for a very long time. I'm gonna have to say I love WoW. I miss you, WoW. I miss you so much, but fuck you. You're a bad addiction. But also, I do appreciate it forever. But I could never kill Star Trek. I mean, this Next Generation and Voyager is like a part of my soul. So we get married. That's the final answer.
All right.
You're
welcome. Kevin, you are a fan of pop culture. You love Star Wars, you collect comic books, and I think you keep a Tron arcade game in your office. Would you support my ongoing campaign to have Disney make a horror movie set in the Star Wars universe?
Oh, absolutely. They need to, because they're running out of ideas. So they need to do something different. So yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So the movie is The Accursed. It's directed by my guest Kevin Lewis. It stars Meg Foster and my guest Sarah Gray, Alexis Knapp, and MENA Suvari. It is in theaters and on demand October 14th. Go see it. This movie was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Is there anything you want to tell the audience about the movie? Anybody?
We have to hire you for our next movie. You're too good. In the sequel,
Awesome.
prequel, whatever, you're coming.
Is there?
Glad you liked it. So
Yeah.
glad you liked it. So glad that you like Willy's and that you like The Accursed. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Welcome. Is there anything any of you want to ask me before we're done?
When's your birthday?
It was a couple weeks ago. I am 15 now.
What? Oh my God. I'm gonna follow you on Instagram, dude. Oh my God. You're something else. Wow. And happy birthday. You're a Libra?
No, I am a Virgo.
Still Virgo. Okay,
Yeah,
right
I'm
on.
a Virgo.
Mhm.
Happy belated.
Deep dive.
Yeah, it's on September 14th is the day. But yeah, thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank
It
you
was
for
great
having us.
interview,
You're
guys.
Thank you for having us.
fantastic. And your set is epic. Thank you for the posters. Look
Thank
great.
you for doing your diligence, man.
Yeah, you're
Impressive.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Make sure you get outside though, go climb a tree. Don't just all day, every day in there. Jump in the ocean. Do you play World of Warcraft?
I don't, sadly. I have a couple friends that do, but I don't play RPGs.
League of Legends.
I don't play any of those. I mainly play like Five Nights at Freddy's or Doom.
Okay.
I've turned out to be really good at Cuphead. So I
Do
mean,
you stream on Twitch?
I do sometimes, but I'm mainly on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stream on Twitch. You wanna come be a guest on mine? I'll teach you how
Of
to play some
course,
games,
yes,
how to
please.
play. That's
Yes,
what I'm gonna do.
please. Of
Okay, great.
course.
That's so
Deal.
cool.
Out on Instagram. That's the only way I allow myself to play video games now. If I'm doing it for a higher purpose, a public thing, otherwise I'm just a junkie and I waste my life. They can't stop. Because I'm into the really addictive ones,
Mm.
fully immersive.
Yeah.
All right, it's a date.
All right. Yeah, thank you guys for coming on. It was
Thank you for
so
having
great.
us. You're fantastic.
My guest today is Kevin Lewis. He's the director of the movies Dark Heart, The Drop, and The Third Nail. In 2021, he released an instant cult classic and one of my favorite movies, Willy's Wonderland, starring Nicolas Cage. I had a chance to speak with him earlier, along with the cast of his new movie, The Accursed, which opens in theaters and on demand October 14th. Make sure you go see this wonderful scare fest. It stars Sarah Gray, Alexis Knapp, Sarah Dumont, and the great Meg Foster, and the always amazing MENA SUVARI. Kevin was kind enough to allow me some time to dig a little deeper into his career. Kevin, it's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, Dax.
To quote Nicolas Cage from the set of Willy's Wonderland, we are in it now.
Yes.
Let's talk about your new movie real quick. When we spoke before, you said Willy's Wonderland was a love letter to 80s horror, and The Accursed is a love letter to 70s horror. After Willy's Wonderland, were you looking for something that would echo 70s horror at the time, or was this an opportunity that came across your desk and you went for it?
A little bit of both. I mean, it was definitely an opportunity, in this field, Dax, the idea of, you can only do one movie when someone sees it and they think, okay, that's it. That's all you're good at. You can do, horror, comedy, kitsch, and there you go. And I was like, no, there's a lot more, that I can do. And I know how being, older and being in this industry for a while, I kind of know how a lot of the studios and producers think. So I was like, okay, I found this script and I was like, now this is an opportunity to do a little more darker, sinister horror, more horror that I like actually, that I'm kind of more attuned to, to me, good horror is good drama, right? So this originally was just a great drama about the sins of the mothers revisiting on their daughters. And I just thought, you know what, this is a great opportunity for me as a filmmaker to stretch and do something a little more edgier and intense than Willy's. And so, yeah, I took it and ran with it.
Before the influence of film, what was the thing that scared you the most as a child? Was there a monster in the basement or a creature under the bed?
It's funny. I remember it when I was a little kid and I saw this documentary on Charles Manson, and it freaked me out. And I remember him doing the little shuffle dance in the jail and stuff like that. And the way he was just cavalier talking about what happened and things like that. And that just really freaked me out. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is fictional horror I've enjoyed, but I've never really been that scared of. Like people go, oh, I saw The Exorcist. I couldn't sleep for days. But I always knew it was a movie in a way, even though when I was little. But real horror, seeing someone like Charles Manson dancing around and knowing what happened, even at that young age, that was very scary. And so I've always looked at movies as like, oh, that's makeup. Like it's a great sequence and scene, but it's like, oh, I can see they used makeup here, or they can do that here. So I never thought, oh, okay, so I'm scared, but it's a movie. But these true life things and stuff like that, and now getting older, you recognize your mortality a little bit more. So like, I guess there's this Dahmer thing that's on Netflix, right? And it's like, Dahmer was real, and I mean, yeah, I'm sure it's a great show and things like that, but I don't know if I want to watch a show about a real life serial killer. I'd rather watch a fictional movie like Hellraiser. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
my whole thing for life, buddy, is, I got 4 kids, and I look at it as like, I like my drama in my movies, but I like Mr. Rogers' lifestyle. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't really want to see, but if I do a movie about like a serial killer, I will do research. I will watch those things because I want to find out. But in terms of pleasure of what I enjoy, no. So what scared me when I was a kid, to answer your question in a long-winded way, was just real life horror, and that the human race can, is capable of doing something like that, So I feel like doing movies and stuff and reading comic books and being in the fiction, world and novels and things was that kind of escapism, because I grew up, my mom was, I had a single mother. My dad wasn't around, left when I was 3. And so my mom actually got in a car accident when I was 10 years old. And so very traumatic car accident. And so things like that, I went to see the movies. I went and watched Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and I have them behind me here. And so that really got me going on making movies in just the fictional world and kind of escape, and so yeah, for me, it was like horror. I loved horror, but I never was that scared of it. What I was scared was true horror and real life horror.
You were born in Denver, Colorado. You grew up in a duplex off what's now Monaco Parkway. You attended
Yeah.
Southmore Elementary School, which was just a short bicycle ride from your house. What were you like as a child?
Gosh, I was really, I always loved comic books. And like I just said, I was into fiction. I wrote a script when I was in elementary school called Destiny of the Jedi. That was before Return of the Jedi came out. And it was really cool. I wrote it, and I had all the weird, the sound effects. I was zip, and I would write them in the script, So my head was always in the clouds, and I always was just thinking about, fiction and fantasy. I was reading Lord of the Rings, so yeah, I just loved all that stuff. I still do. I've got posters here. I collect action figures. I've got physical media and steel books and Blu-rays, and so yeah, I've always loved escape and fantasy.
The Commonwealth Continental Theater was one of Denver's premier showcase theaters when it opened in January 26, 1966, with Charlton Heston's movie The Agony and the Ecstasy, and continued through the 70s and 80s. The theater played host to dozens of large screen 70mm presentations, including Die Hard, the original Star Wars trilogy, The Abyss, and Terminator 2. As I understand it, this was your movie theater. It was walking distance from your house, and I read one of your childhood memories was riding your bike to the theater after school, where you stopped to look at the new poster for Return of the Jedi that was just put out. In 1983, during its run of Return of the Jedi, the theater fell victim to a fire that destroyed part of it. The Rocky Mountain News contained a front page photo of theater workers rushing the 70mm print of Jedi out of the theater to safety. Do you have any fond memories of the Continental, and do you remember the fire?
Buddy, I worked at the Continental. I worked with Die Hard. I worked when they had Willow. Willow was there, and I was there at the concession stand serving popcorn and soda to everybody. And I remember when Die Hard was coming out, and it was like we were supposed to get Red Heat from with Arnold and Jim Belushi. Everybody was so psyched about that, and they said, "No, we're going to get this movie called Die Hard. It's with the guy from Moonlighting." And I was like, "What? okay, whatever, you know. And then I remember coming out, we went to a sneak peek of it. Minds were blown, and I was an usher there. And so Die Hard was so cool because I actually, when I left Colorado, I went to USC Film School. I interned for John McTiernan, one of my favorite directors. So yeah, there's a lot of memories, yeah, and I almost bring a tear to my eye, man. I mean, going to the Continental and seeing the Star Wars movies. I saw Batman '66 there. I mean, that was the premier place. That and the Cooper Theater, and the Continental was right by my house, and I just go to the movies all the time. So that is just awesome. What a great photo too.
Not far from Denver is the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park. Of course, the hotel is famous for being the inspiration behind Stephen King's masterpiece, The Shining. There are many ghosts said to haunt its halls, and I have some experiences there myself.
Mhm.
I was brought on to two impromptu ghost investigations of the hotel's music hall and had some experiences. I always want to remain the skeptic, so I won't say I experienced a haunting, but I will say the evidence I collected was compelling. Were there stories of the Stanley Hotel when you were growing up, or any other urban legends or myths from the area you can tell me about?
You know what's interesting is I love The Shining, but I never visited that hotel, and I always wanted to. And you know, you always heard the stories about the hotel for sure. You know, there were other, you know, there were ghost stories and things like that growing up. There wasn't anything particular that I remember. You know, I grew up, you know, late '70s, early '80s, so it was like, again, Star Wars. Like that was it. That was Star Wars and the black hole. It was cool about the black hole is like that was one of my favorite movies. And I was making my first movie called The Method when I got out of film school, and I'm working with Robert Forster, and I'm telling him, okay, so you're going to come in here, and I go, oh my God, I had a geek moment, you know, and I was like, you were Lieutenant Dan from the black hole, you know, so I was always into science fiction and fantasy and stuff. So ghost stories wasn't my jam when I was young, but I did hear about the hotel. Yeah.
Tom Tully was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor in a Supporting Role for his work in The Caine Mutiny in 1955. On February 8th, 1960, he was awarded a star located at 6119 Hollywood Boulevard on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. What
Yeah.
can you tell me about Tom Tully?
Well, I mean, I met him a couple times, and you know, he wasn't really in my life. But what was cool is when I got out here, I went to USC Film School, and Edward Dmytryk, who directed my grandfather in The Caine Mutiny, he was a teacher there. He was a professor, and so I got to talk to him a little bit about him and things like that. And then when I was trying to get my first movie off the ground, my grandfather was friends with a lot of people, and I wrote Charlton Heston, you know, see if he would just be in my film, you know, and he wrote back, you know, and he was busy on something, and that was later in his years. But you know, it was really cool. My grandfather was known as the tough Irishman. You know, he was in Destination Tokyo and things like that. And one interesting story about him too is like when the whole Red Scare thing with the communists. What I heard the story was that John Wayne asked him who he was going to vote for, if he was voting for McCarthy or not, and he just says none of your business. And what the word is that John Wayne labeled him a communist, and he didn't get work for years after that until Danny Thomas, his friend, hired him, I think, for his TV show, a variety show or something. So I've heard all those stories, but I never really got to talk to Tom. You know, when I was younger, he lost his leg. And he died soon after that. I only met him a couple times, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see. You know, I think Rod Steiger was the one that beat him up in the Academy Awards for, you know, The Caine Mutiny. Rod Steiger for On the Waterfront, but it was really cool talking to Edward Dmytryk about him.
Can you tell me how you got grounded for renting Evil Dead?
Yeah. So my mom gave me $10 at that time to go to the grocery store and to get some milk and eggs. and this new video store opened up, and I went there, and I was like transfixed by Evil Dead, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to see this movie. And it was one copy in. The guy's like, well, man, you better get it now. And at that time I was a little kid, and he was going to rent it to me, you know, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I took that money and I spent it, and I got Evil Dead. And so I went back home to my mom, and she said, where's the groceries? I said, the store ran out. They ran out of the eggs, and they ran out of the milk. And my mom was like, oh my gosh, Kevin. And my sister was the one that said, you need to ground him. He's a movie addict. He's lying. So I did. I got grounded, rightfully so. I lied. But so I spent milk and egg money on Evil Dead. And I'm proud of it to this day. I have a poster right over here signed by Sam Raimi, who I met when I first got out to LA, and he signed it, keep them rolling, looking for your name on the big screen, keep them rolling, Sam Raimi. And then Bruce Campbell wrote, Kevin, ignore what this guy says above this. So, yeah.
Many of my guests made films when they were children or in high school. Few of them won awards and scholarships for them. Do VHS copies of Run or The Real World still exist? And what did KCN Channel 4 in Denver have to do with them?
Yes. So yes, they do exist. No one will ever see them. But they do. They exist. I did another one called Terror into Sea. But yeah, that was the days of the VHS. You did Super 8, you did VHS. And I won a scholarship from KCNC Channel 4, and helped me go to film school on that scholarship. I made a movie called The Real World, and it was cool. I did it with all my friends, and then after we had a party, and we charged admission, but we did it old school. We had like cartoons before, we had old trailers and stuff like that, and it was fun. And to make it look like film back in the day on VHS, we would record it time and time again, have the generation loss, and bump it down so it was just scratchy and just blurry, and try to make it as film as possible. We even made it black and white, But yeah, so that helped me get the scholarship to go to USC Film School.
Have you always been a fan of horror?
Yes.
Makes sense. In the 1980s, cable TV would have been the first time many kids saw horror movies. They would have seen Dawn of the Dead, not knowing what a zombie was. But today, very young kids are going on zombie walks with their parents. Do you think the limited access made these movies scarier in the 80s, and too much access makes them less scary now?
That's a really good question, Dax. I have 4 kids. I have 2 teenagers and 2 little boys who are 6 and 8. And my little boys, now it's probably also because I'm doing it, but they are into horror, and they draw Pennywise and all this fun stuff. And of course, they love Willy's. I've forwarded through parts that they haven't seen. But in terms of like the evil animatronic stuff, and of course, Five Nights at Freddy's and all that. And so they're really into it. And it was so funny when my trailer came out with The Accursed, we were playing it. And I was playing it for my teenagers, and my little boy walked in, and he looked at it and he goes, "Dad, your trailer gives me the shivs," and he walked out, and it was really cute. But yeah, I think everything is so. Nothing's a mystery anymore, right? Everything with a cell phone, everything, you can dial it up. You have a library in your own home because you go to the internet. Nothing's a mystery anymore. Nothing is in trailers, they give everything away. It's like you've already seen the movie now. It's like, why see the movie? I just saw a 5-minute trailer, So yeah, I think there is something to that fact that, horror movies, there was something, I remember sneaking in to seeing Terminator back in the day, because they wouldn't let you in. It was a rated R movie, and now they just play rated R movies all the time. There's no censorship on things. So it felt special when I went and saw Terminator, So yeah, I think there is. I think that access to the cell phones and everything else, it's kind of taken the mystery and the adventure away from all that, for sure.
You attended Thomas Jefferson or TJ High School in Denver. How much of your high school experience do you think informs who you are today?
Okay, I made a movie called Run, and the last scene is the students are chasing the main character out. And I'll never forget, because they were so impatient wanting to make a movie. And they were like, can we go? Can we go? And then the last scene, they were running out. And my teacher at the time said, you guys are going to get off 7th period. And they all ran. And I was like, I got that last shot. And it was like, it was hilarious because it wasn't for the movie. It was for them getting off 7th period. So the thing is that yes, high school did inform me. Everything, helps you become who you are. And I enjoyed my high school. I had a lot of friends, and we'd always go to the movies, and they had dollar movies at that time, and you'd go see movies if you missed. And it was just, it was a great time. So that for sure, it definitely helped me, be who I am today.
We're going to skip through this next part, but you directed a few crime dramas, a thriller, and a comedy, but nothing horror related until one of my favorites, Willy's Wonderland. You've given so many great interviews about the movie, so I will only touch on it briefly here. Nick Cage played a Charles Bronson type character and had no lines throughout the movie, but that wasn't always the case. What was the only line that might have been uttered in the movie but cut?
Okay, so I got the script, and he had no lines except one line at the end, and the line was "Come at me, bro." And it was like, we got to figure out maybe a little more of a line that works. But Nick and I decided, you know what? It's better that he doesn't say anything, because Nick thought that the animatronics were beneath his character. He thought they were trash, and he wouldn't talk to them. So we just decided, you know what? Let's not have any dialogue in it. And so when he comes out from the kitchen and he's ready to fight Willy, I do this push in on the camera, this dolly in, because I want you to think, oh, here it comes. Here comes the line, this line, the cheesy line, and he doesn't say a thing. So that was kind of fun to do.
You've always been a huge fan of Nick Cage. I'd like to read a line from some of his movies to see if you can guess the titles. If I were to say I want to take his face off, then you would answer Face Off. So the first one is Put the Bunny Back in the Box.
Okay, that's Con Air.
That is correct. Second, This is a snakeskin jacket, and for me, it's a symbol of my individuality and my belief in personal freedom.
Okay. Wild at Heart?
Yeah, that's correct. And the last one is you just put it in the right file according to alphabetical order. You know, A, B, C, D, and so on.
Oh boy, that's tough. All right, I'm just going to go on a limb here. Vampire's Kiss?
That's correct. That is correct. Good job.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite Nick Cage movie too.
Yeah. You're the first person who actually got all three right. So good for you. Good job.
All right. All right.
Where is the Willy's Wonderland sign?
So I've gotten, sad news to report. I had it. It was in our backyard. But as you know, with movies, things aren't made to last. It was made out of styrofoam, and I had it treated, and we put it on a platform, and so it was really cool. But because of the weather and things like that, it got deteriorated, so it's no longer exists.
Oh,
I know.
Oh, that's so sad.
I know.
Well, before the release of Willy's Wonderland, you had a terrible case of COVID and were in real jeopardy. When you recovered, I heard you decided you would only make movies you want to make from now on, and horror is a genre you love. Now I see you have a slate of horror movies you're developing. Are there any projects you can talk about yet?
Yeah, I mean, I've got Oak coming out. I just finished that. I'm working on that. That's kind of a Nightmare on Elm Street meets It Follows vibe, kind of a Stranger Things. You know, Dax, it's kind of cool. You were talking about high school and things like that. And I think everyone's influenced by their life, right? And what they've done, you know, in their life and their experiences. And so for me, when I look at Willy's, I look at the Accursed, and I look at Oak, there's kind of a vintage bloodline going through them all. Not that they say they take place in the 80s or the 70s, but they're definitely influenced by those kind of eras for me, because that's when I was a kid. So Oak has got definitely a vintage Amblin, like a hard edge Amblin vibe to it, which is cool. And then I've got some other projects. I got a great sci-fi movie I'm working on. I've got another horror movie called The Houdini Pact. I've got like several, you know, in the movie industry, it's like, you know, there's always moving pieces and things have to click. And so I've got a couple other projects that we'll see, you know, if they all, you know, ferment and get to the point where it's like, okay, let's do it. But each movie takes a lot of hard work, and it takes a piece of your soul if you're committed and if you care. And so for me, I've got to make sure like everything's ready and right to do that next project.
While we wait for those, we have The Accursed. I enjoyed this movie so much, and I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful film. The cast is great, and it has lots of great scares with a wild ending. When we spoke before, you mentioned the movie deals with themes of generational trauma, and mentioned a song from Sting called "History Will Teach Us Nothing" to help explain. Would you speak on that?
Yeah, you know, when I got the script, that's what I saw. I just saw the sins of the mothers revisit on their daughters, and a theme about grief and how we all have our demons. We all have things that you know, we have to confront in life. And it's so awesome, you know, seeing you there. You know, I have a son who's 17 and a daughter who's 16, and I think it's just incredible what you're doing. And, you know, you will have adversities in life, you know, everybody does, but it's how you attack them and you come at them. And with the Accursed, the idea is that she doesn't do it. She kind of lets the guilt take her and things like that. And that kind of leads to other things. And it's like, if you can confront your demons and head on, you know, you're going to be in a much better place. And I always tell my kids, you know, that, you know, you're going to make your own mistakes. Just don't make the ones I do. And here are the ones I do. And I'm trying to help you because, you know, I don't want you to make those. That's time wasted, but you're going to make your own, you know? And that's the thing in the movie. It's like, she makes her mistakes. She's guilt. That really eats her alive. And that drives her to do things and see things. And basically it just says that we need to talk to people. And if you're dealing with things that are hard and mentally kind of challenging, that you need to reach out and talk to somebody to help you, you know? So it deals with a lot of that and the psychology of maybe depression a little bit, you know? So it's definitely a little more adult themed, you know, for me surviving COVID and doing what I went through, I just want to do something that was a little more grounded, you know, where I am in my life. And so that's what appealed to me with The Accursed.
This last question is a Sophie's choice. Two must die so that one may live. Raiders of the Lost Ark, Evil Dead, or Vampire's Kiss?
Oh man, really? Okay. Vampire's Kiss is gone.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, Nick. So we have Raiders and Evil Dead.
Yeah, which one of those go?
I'll have to say Evil Dead.
Wow. All right.
Raiders was the first movie that I saw where I realized what a director did in terms of shooting and cutting and pacing. Star Wars were movies to me that were handed down by God. They just existed. There was no one made them, you know. Raiders was a Steven Spielberg film, and I saw it and I was captivated. And it's a movie that I watch every year. It never gets old. It never gets tired. Evil Dead was a movie that I saw later a little in life, and so I was a little older, but I fell in love with the movies of movie making with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I really did enjoy The Accursed, and I love Willy's Wonderland. I can't wait to see what you have for us next. Until then, everyone needs to see The Accursed. It's in theaters and on demand October 14th. Go see it. Is there anything you want to ask me before we go?
No, I just think you're awesome. I think that at your age and what you're doing, and like I told you, I have kids, and so I know, I just think it's so cool what you're doing and what you're tackling, and I can't wait to see what you do next.